Ilara woke with a start, her body tangled in soft, unfamiliar sheets. The room was silent, except for the distant echo of bells ringing somewhere deep within stone walls. She blinked against the bright morning light streaming through tall, arched windows. Everything felt strange. The air, the furniture, even the smell of the room, a mixture of roses and old incense. Her first thought was confusion. Where am I? Then her eyes fell on her hand, and a gasp escaped her lips. A golden ring, heavy and ornate, glinted on her finger. Its design was unlike anything she had ever seen, a pattern that seemed almost alive, curling and twisting as if it had a story to tell. She tried to remember how it got there, but her mind was foggy, like memories trapped behind a thick curtain. The sound of footsteps made her turn sharply. A tall figure stepped into the room, moving with a grace that made the floor creak softly under his weight. His hair was dark as midnight, and his eyes, sharp and commanding, seemed to pierce straight through her. His armor glimmered faintly in the morning light. But it was his presence that made the room feel colder and yet impossible to ignore. "You're awake," he said, his voice deep, steady, and full of authority. "Good. I feared you might sleep through the morning." Ilara's heart pounded. Who are you?" Her voice trembled. "I am King Draven," he said, moving closer. "And you are my wife." The words hit her like ice. "What?" Her hands shook as she held up her ring. This isn't possible. I don't remember agreeing to marry anyone." Draven's expression softened for a fraction of a second, just enough to make her notice the weight behind his actions. "I understand your fear," he said. "But last night, we were wed. It was meant to be private. I would not have done it without necessity." Ilara's mind spun. She tried to recall the previous night, but only flashes came. A lavish hall, candles, a voice calling her name, laughter she didn't recognize, and then nothing. It was as if someone had erased the memory. I don't remember anything," she stammered. How could this happen?" Draven walked to the window and looked out over the misty cliffs surrounding the castle. "Memory is a fragile thing," he said quietly. "Perhaps it will return. Perhaps it is better that it does not. At least not yet." Ilara wanted to run, to leave this place immediately, but the castle doors were far, far away, and the hallways beyond were dark and silent. She felt trapped not just in the castle, but in a situation she didn't understand. And yet, something about Draven, the way his presence filled the room, made her hesitate. She couldn't deny the pull she felt, even if it frightened her. I need answers," she whispered. "You shall have them," he said, finally turning to face her. His eyes were softer now, but they still held the power of command. "But understand this, Ilara. This ring," he lifted her hand gently, showing the golden band, "is more than a symbol. It binds us, in ways that go beyond mere words." Ilara's stomach churned. Bound. Draven's gaze dropped to the ring, almost reverent. "It is an old magic. One of loyalty, protection, and intimacy. It is not cruel, but it is demanding. It requires truth, courage, and trust." Ilara's fingers tightened around her hand. She had read tales of enchanted rings, of curses and fate, but this was real. She could feel something thrumming beneath her skin, as if the ring pulsed with life, echoing her own heartbeat. The silence between them stretched, filled with unspoken questions. She wanted to run, yet she found herself staring at him, unable to look away. There was a strength in him, yes, but also a shadow of loneliness, a hint of pain that made her chest ache with empathy she didn't understand yet. Finally, she asked, "Why me?" Draven paused, his eyes reflecting something deep, almost hidden. Because you are not afraid. And fearlessness in the wrong hands is dangerous. In the right hands, it can change the course of kingdoms. Elara felt a shiver run down her spine. She wanted to challenge him, to argue, but words failed her. The weight of the castle, the ring, and the presence of the man before her pressed down like the tide. "Come," he said after a moment. "You must dress and prepare for breakfast. There are matters of state we cannot ignore, even on the morning of our marriage." She followed him reluctantly, her mind a storm of questions. The halls of the castle were grand, yet silent, lined with portraits of men and women, whose eyes seemed to follow her every step. The air smelled of polished stone, smoke, and old magic. Servants bowed deeply, but said nothing, as if they, too, were waiting for her to decide what she would become. Breakfast was served in a grand hall with ceilings so high that sunlight barely touched the floor. Draven sat at the head of the table, his posture perfect, his gaze occasionally drifting to her with an intensity that made her stomach tighten. "You will eat," he commanded softly. "It is important. The day is long, and there are many eyes watching us." She nodded, barely touching the food. Her mind was elsewhere, racing through possibilities. Could she escape? Should she confront him? And most pressing of all, why did she feel a strange pull toward him, something that wasn't fear, not exactly, but something close? Draven watched her quietly. "I know you are overwhelmed," he said, "but understand this. Elara, there is more at stake than either of us alone. There are those who would see this union fail, who would see you hurt. That cannot happen. Not while I am king. Not while I am here." Elara felt her pulse quicken. There was an undeniable magnetism in his words, in the way he looked at her, in the way he spoke, as though he could see the truth of her soul. And yet, there was caution too, a barrier she could sense, but could not yet breach. After breakfast, she wandered the castle, trying to find answers in the quiet corners and shadowed hallways. She found a small chamber, dust motes dancing in the sunlight that filtered through the high windows. On a desk lay a folded piece of paper. She recognized Draven's handwriting immediately, elegant and precise. With trembling hands, she unfolded it. "Elara, by the time you read this, you may not remember our vows. You may doubt, fear, and resist what is to come. Yet know this, your courage, your heart, and your spirit are why I chose you. Tonight, the crown will demand your loyalty in ways your heart cannot yet understand. Trust yourself. Trust us." Her breath caught. How much did he remember? How much did she? And what did he mean by the crown demanding her loyalty? The sound of footsteps drew her attention. Draven was standing in the doorway, silent and imposing. "I see you found the note," he said. "Do not fear it. It is only guidance." She looked at him, searching his face for some clue, some reassurance. But there was only a mixture of certainty and uncertainty. A man who had faced many battles, and yet feared the one that lay before him now. "Why me?" she whispered again, though this time it was quieter, almost a plea. Draven stepped closer, closing the distance between them, but did not touch her. "Because fate has chosen us. And sometimes," he said, voice low and intense, "fate chooses the hardest path so that hearts may learn to endure, to forgive, to love." Elara felt a strange warmth bloom in her chest, a mixture of fear and something else she did not understand. She wanted to retreat, to run back to the life she had known, but a part of her could not ignore the strange, compelling pull toward him, the same pull that had drawn her to the castle, to the ring, to him. Outside, the wind howled against the cliffs, carrying the scent of the forest and the promise of storms. Inside, the castle was still, watching, waiting. Elara knew her life had changed forever. And in the silence, one thought rose above all others. I am married to a man I barely know. And yet, I feel I have known him forever. The first step had been taken. The castle, the ring, and the king awaited her next move, and she was no longer just Elara of the village. She was now Elara of the castle, bound by fate, bound by magic, and bound by a man whose secrets ran deeper than she could imagine. As she looked into Draven's eyes once more, she realized that nothing would ever be the same again. The ring felt warm against her skin, and for the first time, she wondered, not in fear, but in a strange curiosity, what it truly meant to be his wife. And somewhere, deep in the shadows of the castle, something stirred, as if it, too, awaited her answer. To be continued. The morning sunlight stretched through the castle halls, but the warmth did little to comfort Elara. Her mind was still clouded with confusion, the memory of last night slipping through her fingers like mist. Every corner of the castle seemed unfamiliar, yet strangely alive, as though it were waiting for her to understand its secrets. Draven had left her in the great hall after breakfast, his expression unreadable, and a sense of foreboding lingered in the air. Elara wandered through the corridors, her steps echoing against the polished stone floors. Tapestries depicting battles and royal ceremonies lined the walls, and portraits of previous rulers gazed down with stern faces. She felt a strange mix of awe and intimidation. In one shadowed corridor, she paused before a portrait of a young queen. Her eyes, painted with such care, seemed almost to follow Elara, holding a silent question. Was she like me? Did she too feel trapped by the ring and the crown? Elara's thoughts were interrupted by a soft footstep behind her. She turned quickly to see Draven, leaning casually against a doorway. You wander as if the castle itself frightens you, he said. There was no accusation in his tone, only observation. I just want to understand, Elara admitted. Everything is so strange. I don't even remember. Us. Last night. Draven pushed himself off the doorway and walked beside her, his long coat brushing the floor. Memory is tricky. Some nights leave impressions only in your heart, not your mind. What matters now is the present. Elara swallowed hard. But how can I be your wife if I can't even remember why? Draven's expression softened, and for a moment, the kingly armor of his demeanor fell away. Because you are brave enough to face the unknown. Because even without memory, you have the strength to endure what is to come. That is more than enough for me. Her heart skipped. His words carried a weight she could not explain, and a curious warmth spread through her chest. She wanted to argue, to push him away, yet a strange pull held her near him. She did not fully understand it, but it was undeniable. The castle seemed to notice her hesitation. Doors creaked, shadows shifted, and distant whispers echoed through the halls, though no one was there. Elara felt eyes upon her, some human, some not. She realized that she was not alone, that the castle itself held secrets waiting to be discovered. Come, Draven said after a pause. I will show you the gardens. Perhaps the fresh air will calm your thoughts. The gardens were vast, stretching out toward the cliffs and the dark forest beyond. Mist hovered above the dewy grass, and flowers of colors she did not recognize swayed as though moved by a wind she could not feel. Birds with glimmering feathers chirped in the distance, their songs hauntingly beautiful. This place, Elara whispered, taking in the beauty and strangeness around her. It feels alive. Draven smiled faintly, though his eyes remained serious. It is. The castle and its grounds respond to those within them. They sense intentions, emotions, and courage. It is not always kind to the timid. Elara shivered. I am not timid, she told herself. Yet the truth was, she felt tiny in this immense, ancient place, and the pull of the ring on her finger made her chest tighten in ways she could not name. They walked in silence for a time, the only sounds being the distant waves crashing against the cliffs below and the soft rustle of leaves. Finally, Elara spoke. Draven. Why did you choose me? Why not someone from the court? Draven paused, turning his gaze toward the endless forest. Because you are different. You do not bend to fear. You do not hide behind appearances. And in a world full of shadows, I needed someone whose light could challenge mine. One. Doer. Elara felt her pulse quicken. His words were both a compliment and a warning. Light and shadow, she thought. She wondered what shadows haunted him, and if she could survive the darkness that followed him so closely. Before she could ask, the distant sound of shouting reached their ears. Courtiers, servants, and guards rushed toward the gates, their voices tense and urgent. Draven's expression hardened immediately, and he took her hand without asking, guiding her back toward the castle. Inside, the great hall was alive with whispers and speculation. A messenger knelt before Draven, bowing deeply. Your Majesty, there are rumors of unrest in the neighboring kingdom. They question your union with Queen Elara. Draven's jaw tightened. And, they say, the messenger continued hesitantly, that if you are to remain united, the Queen must prove her loyalty, or risk being taken from you by force. Elara's stomach twisted. Loyalty? Taken from you? Her mind raced. This was more than she had imagined. She had thought the castle's walls, the ring, and Draven's presence were all she had to contend with. But now, the world outside was threatening her too. Draven's gaze softened. But the edge of command remained. Then, we will show them loyalty. Not through fear, but through courage. You must understand, Elara. That being queen is not merely a title. It is responsibility, strength, and the courage to stand, even when shadows surround you. Elara nodded, trying to steady her racing thoughts. She had not expected to be thrust into politics, intrigue, and danger before breakfast. Yet here she was, and though she wanted to resist, a part of her felt exhilarated alive in a way that her ordinary life had never allowed. That evening, the castle held a masked ball. Courtiers and nobles danced, their masks hiding smiles and schemes alike. Elara had been given a gown of deep emerald silk, intricate and flowing, unlike anything she had worn before. She moved among the guests with Draven at her side, feeling both like an intruder and a queen. As they approached the center of the hall, a sudden commotion erupted. A masked figure lunged toward her, a dagger glinting in the candlelight. Without thinking, Draven intercepted, sweeping her behind him as his sword flashed. The figure fell to the floor, captured by the guards before it could strike again. Elara's hands shook. What just happened? Draven's eyes softened as he looked down at her. There are those who would see us fail. Those who fear the union of light and shadow. You must trust me. Always. She looked at him, and for the first time, the pull between them was undeniable. His presence was both terrifying and comforting. In the midst of danger, she felt a strange thrill, as though her heart had found a rhythm it had never known before. After the incident, the castle seemed quieter, almost expectant. Elara wandered the halls once more, following an instinct she could not explain. She discovered a narrow staircase, hidden behind a tapestry, leading to a small chamber she had never seen before. Inside, portraits lined the walls, women, all wearing the same golden ring as hers. Each woman's eyes told a story of joy, sorrow, and sometimes tragedy. Elara's chest tightened. Were they queens? Were they wives? Or victims? A whisper of wind brushed against her ear. Do not fear the past, Draven's voice said behind her. It does not define you. Only you can choose how your story will end. Elara turned to him, startled by his sudden presence. But they all wore the ring. and it ended badly for them. Draven stepped closer, his hand brushing hers, though not touching the ring, because they did not understand what it meant. They did not face the shadows. You have the choice to endure, to fight, and to embrace what comes with courage. That is why you are different. Her heart ached with a strange mixture of fear and longing. The ring pulsed softly against her finger, as if responding to her uncertainty. She knew that her journey had only begun, and that the castle, the ring, and the man beside her were part of a fate she could neither run from nor ignore. Outside, the moon rose high over the cliffs, casting silver light across the castle gardens. Inside, Elara felt a quiet determination take root. She would learn the truth of the ring, the truth of Draven, and the truth of herself. And yet, in the shadows, unseen eyes watched her, waiting, as if the castle itself was alive with secrets and whispers. To be continued. The castle was silent in the early hours, though the shadows seemed to whisper along the stone walls. Elara walked the corridors, the golden ring on her finger warm against her skin, pulsing faintly as if urging her forward. Each step carried a mix of curiosity and unease. She could feel the castle watching, listening, waiting. Draven approached quietly from the darkness, his presence unmistakable even before she saw him. "You wander too late," he said, his deep voice low, but not unkind. "The night can be dangerous in ways you may not understand." I couldn't sleep," Elara admitted. "I keep thinking about the women in the chamber, the ones who wore rings like mine. What happened to them? Why did their stories end in sorrow?" Draven's expression darkened. He gestured toward the distant towers where the moonlight barely touched. "Those women, they did not understand the ring, or the legacy it carries. The union is not merely ceremonial, it is bound by magic, and by choice. Without trust and courage, the curse takes hold." Elara's breath caught. "Curse?" Draven nodded. "Yes. Our family has long carried it. Each union marked by the ring is tested by shadows, by fears, doubts, and the hearts of those who wish to see it fail. Many before us were unable to withstand it." The words chilled her. She looked at the golden band on her finger. It had seemed beautiful and mysterious before, but now it felt like a chain, linking her fate to a legacy she did not yet understand. Draven stepped closer, his gaze steady and intense. "But you are different, Elara. You feel the weight of it, yet you do not falter. That is why the ring responded to you." Elara's heart raced. She wanted to pull away, to deny the strange connection she felt, but the pull was undeniable. "And what if I fail?" she whispered. "You will not fail," Draven said firmly. "Not if we face it together." He took her hand, lightly, letting their fingers brush without forcing contact. The warmth of his touch spread through her, and for a moment, the shadows in her mind seemed to lift. She realized that she trusted him more than she had expected, even without understanding why. The castle groaned as the wind picked up outside. Draven led her to a chamber, lined with shelves filled with ancient scrolls and tomes. Candles flickered, casting moving shadows that seemed alive. "This," he said, "is where the history of the ring and the curse is kept. It is time you understand what binds us." He opened a large book, its pages brittle with age. "The ring was forged by the first of my line, to protect and unite the kingdom. But power often attracts envy, and magic carries a cost. Each wearer is bound to the one they choose, yet the bond must be mutual. The curse tests the heart, and those who fail are lost to the shadows." Elara leaned closer, fascinated despite the fear curling in her chest. "So, it tests our feelings?" Draven nodded. "Yes, it is not cruel, but demanding. It reveals truths, fears, and desires. It does not forgive weakness of heart. Her thoughts returned to last night, the memory she could not recall, the fleeting emotions she felt, and the man standing before her. She realized she had been drawn to him, not by force, but by instinct. The pull of the ring had connected their hearts, and now it was urging them to confront the curse together. Suddenly, a chill swept through the room. Candles flickered, and the shadows seemed to stretch longer. A whisper echoed, faint but distinct. "Do not fail." Ilara's breath caught. "Did you hear that?" Draven's hand gripped hers firmly. "I did. The castle is alive with magic, and it responds to the bond we share. We must be vigilant. There are those who would see the bond broken, and the curse strengthened." He led her through a hidden passage to the castle's outer courtyard. Moonlight spilled over the mist, turning the garden into a silver labyrinth. "You must learn to trust, not only me, but yourself," he said. "The curse senses doubt. If we falter, it will take advantage." Ilara's mind swirled. Fear, curiosity, and a strange longing fought for dominance in her heart. "And if I love you?" she asked quietly, almost afraid to speak it. Draven's eyes softened, just for a moment. "Then we will survive," he said. "But it is not love that breaks the curse alone. It is courage, honesty, and sacrifice." As if summoned by his words, a dark wind rose through the gardens. Shadows twisted along the paths, forming shapes that seemed almost human. Ilara gasped, her hand tightening around his. "They test us now," Draven said. "Face them, and do not falter." Figures made of mist and darkness emerged, moving with purpose. Their eyes glimmered like black flames, reflecting fears and doubts. Ilara felt an invisible pressure against her mind. Memories of failures she did not fully remember pressing at the edges of her consciousness. Draven stepped forward, drawing a small dagger that glimmered with faint blue light. He moved with precision, cutting through the shadows as if they were nothing but smoke. "Stay close," he instructed, his voice steady. "Do not let them separate us. Their power lies in fear, not in strength." Ilara drew a deep breath. For the first time, she felt a surge of courage. She remembered the pull of the ring, the warmth of Draven's hand, and the bond they shared. She lifted her chin, stepping beside him, and for a moment, the shadows faltered. "You are stronger than you know," Draven said, his eyes meeting hers. "The bond between us is more than magic. It is trust." And, together, they pushed through the shadows, moving toward the moonlit garden fountain at the heart of the courtyard. As they approached, the shadows shrieked and dissipated into the night air, leaving only a lingering chill. Ilara felt her pulse slow. She looked at Draven, a mixture of awe and something deeper in her eyes. I don't understand everything, but I know I am not afraid with you." Draven's hand brushed hers again, this time a deliberate touch. "Then you are ready," he said softly. "Ready to face the curse, to face the past, and to face the truth between us." Ilara's mind raced. The truth between us. She thought of last night, the wedding, and the fragments of emotions that lingered like sparks. She realized that despite the fear, despite the confusion, she was drawn to him, heart and soul. Draven lowered his gaze, his voice almost a whisper. "I remember the night differently than you. I remember fear, yes, but also a connection I cannot deny. You were not just a bride to me, you were more." Ilara felt her breath catch. "More?" "Yes," he said, stepping closer. "I do not know if your heart recalls it, but mine does. The ring binds us, but it cannot create what is not already there. I care for you, Ilara, more than duty demands, more than fear allows." Her chest tightened, emotions swirling in a storm she could not control. She wanted to speak, to confess something she did not fully understand herself, but words failed her. Instead, she reached out, letting her hand rest in his. The castle seemed to hum with approval. The air grew warmer, the shadows less threatening. Somewhere in the distance, a bell tolled softly, marking the passage of time. "We will face this together," she whispered. Draven nodded, his eyes dark with both passion and restraint. "Together," he echoed. "But know this, Alara, the curse is patient. It will test us again, in ways we cannot yet imagine. Only by trusting one another fully can we hope to survive it." Outside, the wind had settled. The moon cast a silver glow over the cliffs, and the castle stood tall and silent, ancient and eternal. Inside, two hearts beat in unison, bound by magic, trust, and a budding connection that was stronger than either had expected. Alara looked down at the ring once more. It no longer felt like a burden, but a promise, a challenge. Yes, but one she was willing to face. And as she looked into Draven's eyes, she realized that fear could not dominate courage, nor could doubt override the bond they now shared. Somewhere deep in the castle, shadows shifted again. But this time, they seemed hesitant. The bond between Alara and Draven was strong, and the curse, for all its power, would not break them, not if they faced it together. And yet, the air carried a warning. Faint, but clear. The hardest trials are yet to come. To be continued. The castle was quiet, but an uneasy energy lingered in the stone halls. The shadows of the night had not fully receded, and even in the soft morning light, Alara felt the weight of expectation pressing down on her. The ring on her finger pulsed faintly, as if aware of the trials to come. Draven stood by the window in the great hall, his posture commanding, yet his expression betrayed a hint of vulnerability. He turned as she entered. "The night approaches," he said quietly. "It is time to confront the curse fully. The bond we share will be tested, and only through courage and truth will it endure." Alara swallowed, her heart pounding. I understand. Though, I still feel fear." "That is natural," Draven replied. "Fear is not weakness. It is the shadow of awareness. We must not deny it, only face it together." The two of them walked toward the inner courtyard, where the moonlight spilled over the stone fountain. The air was thick with a magical tension, and the castle seemed to breathe with them, alive and waiting. As they reached the center of the courtyard, the shadows rose again. This time, they were stronger, darker, more purposeful. Figures of mist and darkness formed shapes that were almost human, their eyes glimmering like fire in the night. Alara felt the weight of their gaze pressing against her mind, testing her fears, dredging up doubts from deep within. Draven moved to her side, drawing his dagger that gleamed with a faint blue light. "Stay close," he instructed. "Do not let the shadows separate us. Their strength is in fear, not in the heart." Alara took a deep breath. The fear inside her pressed against her chest, but she remembered his words. Courage, honesty, trust. She met his gaze, and in that moment, she felt something solid, something unbreakable, forming between them. The shadows surged forward, attempting to envelop them. Draven moved like a whirlwind, cutting through the dark figures with precision, but the shadows reformed endlessly. Alara could feel the pull of the curse through the ring, whispering doubts, testing her resolve. "You are stronger than you know," Draven said, his hand brushing hers for just a moment. "The bond is not only magic, it is trust. Trust me. Trust yourself." Her chest tightened as she nodded. She raised her hand, letting the warmth of the ring flow through her. A spark of courage, of defiance, spread from her fingers up her arm. She realized then that the power of the curse was not meant to control her, it was meant to reveal what was already in her heart. Together, they stepped forward into the shadows, their hands brushing and then holding firmly. The dark figures recoiled, shrieking, unable to withstand the strength of their combined will. Elara felt a thrill of power and fear mixed together, as though every heartbeat was a drum against the darkness. Draven's eyes met hers, and in that gaze, she saw not command, but vulnerability. "Elara, I have fought many battles," he said, voice low and intense. "I have faced enemies in every form, but never one that tests my heart like this. I care for you, more than duty allows. I cannot lose you to fear or shadow." Elara's throat tightened. She wanted to speak, to tell him that she felt the same, that the pull she had sensed since waking in the castle was more than curiosity or fear. She nodded, letting her hand squeeze his. "I care for you too," she whispered. The moment their hearts spoke the truth aloud, the shadows faltered. The darkness shrieked, twisting and contorting, before dissolving into mist, leaving the courtyard bathed in silvery moonlight. The castle seemed to exhale, the tension easing as if approving their courage and honesty. Draven lowered his hand, his eyes still locked on hers. "The curse is not gone," he warned. "But it will no longer control us. We have faced it together, and our bond has been strengthened by truth and bravery. That is what the curse respects most." Elara looked at the golden ring on her finger. It no longer pulsed with the uneasy warning of before. Instead, it felt like an extension of her will, a promise of unity and choice rather than confinement. The two of them walked back into the castle, the air lighter, the shadows retreating into the corners. Courtiers and servants watched them from the halls, respectful and reverent, sensing a change in the castle's energy. Elara felt a sense of belonging she had never expected. In the private chamber, Draven finally allowed himself to relax. "You were incredible," he said, sitting beside her. "You faced the shadows without faltering. You embraced the unknown when most would have run." Elara smiled faintly, her heart still racing. "I couldn't have done it alone. You guided me, and you trusted me." His gaze softened. "We trusted each other. That is the key, Elara. Not the ring, not the castle, not even the crown. Only trust, courage, and willingness to face our fears together can break the cycle." For a long moment, they sat in silence, the tension easing but not completely gone. There was still a sense of danger in the castle, of challenges yet to come, but the immediate threat of the curse had passed. Elara looked into Draven's eyes, searching for the man behind the king, the one who had touched her hand, saved her, and spoken of connection and care. She realized that fear had not disappeared, but it had been replaced with something stronger: trust, understanding, and a fragile but undeniable affection. She began, hesitating. "I never expected any of this. Not the castle, not the ring, not you." Draven reached out, gently lifting her hand to his lips. He kissed the back of her fingers, reverent and tender. "None of us can choose our fate," he said softly, "but we can choose how we face it. And I choose to face it with you." Elara's heart swelled with emotion. She realized that she had been afraid of losing herself, of being trapped, yet here she was, standing beside a man whose power could have intimidated her, but whose honesty and vulnerability invited her trust. The first rays of dawn touched the castle towers, casting the stone walls in gold and silver. The morning was calm, yet alive with possibility. Elara felt a sense of peace she had not known before. The ring on her finger was no longer a symbol of fear, it was a symbol of courage, of connection, of a future she could embrace willingly. Draven rose and took her hand, leading her to the balcony overlooking the cliffs and the forest beyond. "The world beyond these walls will test us," he said, his voice steady, but softer than before. "But together, there is nothing we cannot face." Alara nodded, her eyes tracing the horizon where the ocean met the sky. "I believe that now," she said. "With you, I feel ready." Draven turned to her, a rare, genuine smile touching his lips. "Then let us face the world, Alara. Not as king and queen bound by duty, but as two hearts united by choice." The wind lifted around them, carrying the scent of flowers, the salt of the sea, and the faintest trace of magic. The castle, once a place of shadows and secrets, seemed to glow with approval, as if acknowledging their bond and their courage. For the first time, Alara felt the truth of her own strength. The ring had not trapped her, it had guided her, tested her, and ultimately revealed the depth of her heart. And beside her, Draven, once distant and commanding, was now partner and protector, his trust in her as complete as hers in him. They stood together in silence, letting the morning light wash over them, feeling the weight of the past lift and the promise of the future settle. And though the castle would always hold its secrets, and the world beyond would challenge them, for this moment, they were free. Alara lifted her hand, letting the golden ring catch the sunlight. "We did it," she whispered. Draven nodded, his eyes shining with something beyond command or control. "We did it together," he replied, and for the first time, they both knew fear had been faced, shadows had been conquered, and their hearts, bound by magic, courage, and choice, would endure whatever trials awaited. Outside, the wind danced through the trees, and the castle stood tall on the cliffs, ancient and eternal. Inside, two hearts beat in unison, ready to embrace the world, not as king and queen bound by duty, but as equals bound by trust, courage, and love. The ring shimmered softly, a silent promise of the future, and Alara realized that she had found her place, not just in the castle, not just beside the king, but in her own heart. The castle was quiet, but it had witnessed the birth of a bond stronger than magic, stronger than fear, stronger than any curse. And as they looked toward the horizon together, both knew that the trials ahead would only serve to deepen what had been forged in courage, trust, and love.